Welcome back to Retro Rules Vault, where horsepower never dies. I'm Retro Vault 4, your tour guide to the roaring asphalt jungles of yesteryear. Today we're unleashing the 1977 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, a rolling thunderstorm with a hood scoop. Because modern cars forgot what muscle means, this bird's here to remind them, loudly. When people think of the 77 Firebird Trans Am, the first thing that usually comes to mind, besides Burt Reynolds' mustache, is that massive hood decal. Officially called the Screaming Chicken, it's a bold, stylized bird spreading its wings in fiery glory across the hood. And here's the fun part. A lot of folks swear it's an eagle, a phoenix, or some other majestic creature. But nope. Pontiac themselves call it a chicken. A screaming one at that. Apparently nothing says American performance like an enraged poultry taking flight. Introduced earlier in the decade, the Screaming Chicken hit full pop culture stride in '77. It wasn't just a sticker, it was a statement. You didn't put this bird on a beige sedan. You put it on a V8 powered machine built for speed, attitude, and a little bit of showmanship. And Pontiac knew it. This decal became so tied to Trans Am's identity that even modern tribute models still proudly wear it. It's over the top, unapologetic, and just a bit ridiculous, which is exactly why it works. Because in a world of muscle cars, subtlety is for economy sedans, and the Screaming Chicken is here to make sure everyone hears you coming before they even see you. The 77 Firebird started into the muscle car scene like it had just gotten a sharp new haircut and wasn't afraid to show it off. Gone were the old headlights, now replaced with a fresh pair of full rectangular lamps that gave the front end a meaner, more focused stare like it was sizing up the car next to it at a red light. The shaker scoop also got a makeover. Early 77 built TAs wore off center, lower profile shaker scoops, kind of like a rebellious eyebrow piercing, while later models sported a more centralized look. The Formula hood also bowed out with a final redesign, now wearing a much lower profile that gave the whole car a sleeker, more aerodynamic vibe. Down by the wheels, Pontiac rolled out the now iconic snowflake design, available on all Firebirds and coming standard with the Y82 appearance package. But if you were feeling old school, you could swap them out for Rally 2 wheels as a credit option, because Pontiac believed in giving you style choices for your street battles. Altogether, the 77 Trans Am's facelift wasn't just cosmetic. It was Pontiac's way of keeping this bird sharp, confident, and ready to ruffle some feathers on the open road. By 1977, Pontiac knew the muscle car world was getting a little, let's say, politically correct under tightening emission rules, but the Trans Am still came packing enough muscle to flex. Buyers had three heart-pounding choices under the hood. The standard was the Pontiac L78-400, labeled with the 6.6 liter decal on the shaker scoop. Spend a bit more money and you could unlock the W72-400, proudly wearing the TA 6.6 badge like a heavyweight championship belt. Then, for high altitude states and California, the Oldsmobile sourced L80-403 stepped in as a smog compliant muscle ambassador. The W72 was the real bruiser of the bunch. 200 horsepower and 325 foot-pounds of torque, thanks to a tuned 800 CFM Rochester Quadrajet carburetor, chrome valve covers, and 6x4 heads with higher compression and hardening seats for high RPM fun. The L78 made do with 180 horsepower and blue valve covers, while the Olds 403 split the difference with 185 horsepower and 320 foot-pounds at slightly lower 2200 RPM. Great for effortless street cruising. Pontiac even ditched cubic inch labels for the metric 6.6 liter to keep up with the times. But make no mistake, no matter the decal, each engine had enough grunt to make the Trans Am's rear tires sing and the competition sweat. By 1977, the Trans Am's drivetrain lineup was like a well-stocked toolbox. Different tools for different jobs, but all built to get the job done with style. For those who believe true driving meant doing the shifting yourself, the W72 package came with the classic 4-speed Borg-Warner T10 manual transmission. This wasn't just a gearbox, it was a handshake between you and the engine, each shift slotting home like a rifle bolt. Row it right, and you could wring every last drop of performance out of that TA 6.6 V8. but not everyone wanted to play musical chairs with the clutch pedal. That's where the 3-speed turbo hydromatic TH350 automatic came in. Found in the L78, the L80, and even available in the W72, it was smooth, tough, and dependable, kind of like that friend who never skips arm day but still shows up in a suit when needed. Regardless of which you choose, both transmissions fed power through the stout rear end that was more than happy to turn torque into tire smoke. The 77 Trans Am didn't care if you were a gear-banging purist or a laid-back cruiser. It had the drivetrain to make sure your ride was fast, fun, and full of attitude. Underneath the feathered decals and shaker scoop, the 1977 Firebird rode on GM's trusty F-body platform, a foundation it shared with its Camaro cousin. Think of it as a family recipe. The same base ingredients, but Pontiac added its own spice seasoning to make sure the Trans Am felt sharper and meaner. Up front, the suspension used a double-stamped 8-arm setup with unequal length upper and lower control arms, a design that gave the second-gen F-body its trademark mix of agility and composure. It's like giving the front wheels a dance partner who always knew the right steps, keeping the Trans Am steady through the corners without sacrificing ride comfort. Out back, a multi-leaf rear suspension kept the power planted where it mattered, on the pavement. This setup wasn't just for show. It helped tame the torque when you buried your foot in the throttle and kept the rear end from hopping around like a caffeinated jackrabbit. Whether stock or mildly tweaked, the multi-leaf design gave the Trans Am the kind of balance you wanted in a performance machine. In short, the 77 Trans Am's chassis and suspension didn't just carry the car, it gave the confidence to strut, slide, and sprint with muscle-bound grace. Step inside this Firebird and you were greeted by an interior that could be as simple or as plush as your wallet and taste allowed. The deluxe interior package was the crown jewel, swapping in upscale seats, door panels, and even upgraded ashtrays. Yes, in the 70s, even your cigarette got the VIP treatment. Beyond the seating, Pontiac let you stack on the creature comforts. Power windows meant you could roll down the glass without cranking your arm like you were starting a lawnmower. Power locks gave you that extra click of convenience, and the upgraded stereo system was perfect for blasting your favorite 8-track while cruising Main Street, hood scoop leading the charge. Despite being a muscle car at heart, the Trans Am didn't skimp on driver-focused ergonomics. The dash layout kept gauges easy to read so you could keep one eye on the tack and the other on the horizon. Even the steering wheel felt like it belonged in a car built to be driven hard. In short, the 77 Trans Am's interior was equal parts function and flash. Whether you wanted bare-knuckle performance or leather-lined street brawler, Pontiac had you covered in style. Out back, the Firebird put its power to the pavement through an 8.5-inch corporate 10-bolt, or in some beefier setups, a 12-bolt differential. Think of it as the unsung muscle in the Drivetrain family. Quiet, strong, and always ready to take a beating. This rear end didn't just transfer torque, it survived countless Smokey burnouts and high RPM launches without complaint. Whether you were carving corners or lining up at the strip, it was a kind of hardware that gave you confidence. In muscle car terms, it was a strong spine holding this bird's powerful wings steady in flight. The Firebird had proportions that screamed performance before you even turned the key. At 196.8 inches long, it had the stance of a predator ready to pounce, low, sleek, and muscular. With a width of 73.4 inches, it filled a lane like it owned the road, giving you plenty of shoulder without feeling like you were piloting a barge. Standing just 49.3 inches tall, the Trans Am was practically kissing the pavement, a profile that helped it slice through the air and look menacing doing it. The 108.2-inch wheelbase struck a sweet balance between stability at speed and agility in the curves, kind of like a linebacker who can still dance. Tipping the scales at 3,530 pounds, it wasn't a lightweight, but that heft worked in its favor, giving it the planted, confident feel you wanted when unleashing all that V8 torque. You could call it solid, or you could say it had the road presence of a heavyweight prizefighter, always ready to throw a punch. In short, the 77 Trans Am's dimensions weren't just numbers on a spec sheet. They were the carefully measured ingredients for a machine built to look fast, feel fast, and absolutely own the boulevard. The Firebird Trans Am had strengths that made it a legend and weaknesses that reminded you it was still a product of its time. On the strength side, it had an unmistakable style. Those screaming chicken decals, shaker scoop, and sleek F-body lines were automotive attitude on four wheels. The variety of engine options meant you could choose between respectable grunt and full-on tire-smoking muscle. Handling, for a car in its class, was surprisingly sharp, thanks to the well-sorted suspension. And let's be honest, few cars could make you feel cooler pulling into a parking lot. But it wasn't all high-fives and burnouts. The The late 70s weren't exactly horsepower heaven, and emissions rules meant even the mighty W72 wasn't as wild as muscle cars from just a few years prior. Fuel economy? Let's just say the gas gauge still moved almost as fast as the speedometer. The interior, while stylish, could get rattly with age, and road noise was part of the authentic muscle car experience. Still, the 77 Trans Am's weaknesses were more like quirks. Things you forgave the moment you mashed the throttle. It was a car that made every drive an event, and that, more than anything, was its greatest strength. The 1977 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am wasn't just a car. It was a rolling statement, a four-wheeled exclamation mark on the muscle car era. It had the looks that turned heads, the stance that owned the road, and enough power to make every stoplight feel like the start of a drag race. Sure, it drank fuel like a sailor on shore leave and wasn't as fire-breathing as the early 70s ancestors, but it more than made up for it with charisma. This was a machine that didn't just get you from A to B, it made the journey unforgettable with the soundtrack of a rumbling V8 as your theme song. From its bold styling to its driver-focused attitude, the 77 Trans Am still holds a place in the pantheon of cool. Whether you're restoring one, remembering the first time you saw Smokey and the Bandit, or just love a car with a little swagger, it's hard not to smile when this bird spreads its wings. So what's your favorite thing about the 77 Trans Am? The looks, the power, or the movie magic? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more muscle car deep dives. And remember, here on Retro Reels Vault, keep it loud, keep it classic.